Before you begin installing your Masonite door, please review the hardware packaged with the product and gather all tools required by the installation instructions. The following hardware is provided with your bifold door: the track, 3 pivots, a jam bracket, a snugger guide, an aligner, a door pull, and a variety of screws. Recommended tools for this installation are shown. Accurate measurement of the opening is critical for installation success. You may have already performed these steps to determine the appropriate door to purchase, but a review here will confirm the measurements and help ensure a seamless installation. Measure the width of the finished opening. Masonite bifold doors come in a variety of widths to accommodate most any need, and allow a 1/4 inch gap on both sides to avoid rubbing the wall when opening. A measurement of 36 inches or less will require 1 set of bifold doors, while a measurement greater than 36 inches will require 2. Measure the height of the finished opening. If the height of the opening is 78 3/4 of an inch, then a 78-inch door should be installed. For 80 3/4 inch openings, an 80-inch door should be installed. The additional height allows for a gap at the top and bottom of the door, with sufficient clearance underneath to accommodate most flooring conditions using the adjustable installation hardware. Check to be sure the finished opening is square and plumb. For new construction, as long as the opening requirements are met, you can finish the rough opening with either a wood frame or a drywall, because the bifold installation hardware can be surface mounted to either material. If your bifold doors are unfinished, make certain to completely finish the front and back and all sides of each panel with paint or stain before installing. To install your Masonite bifold doors, the first step is to attach the track. Measure and confirm the exact width of your finished opening. If the track is longer than your opening, use a fine-tooth hacksaw to cut the track to 1/8 of an inch less than the width of the finished opening. For installing 2 sets of doors, measure and cut both tracks evenly, if needed, and align them end to end with the pivot brackets on the outside. Mark the center line of the door header in a few places, then draw a line that connects the marks. Position the track over the line with the pre-installed pivot bracket on the side you want your doors to open toward. Fasten the track with the screws provided. Although the center line is recommended for ease, flush installations can be achieved by adjusting the location of the track. Because bifold doors can open in either direction and the 2 panels are universal, we will refer to them based on how they function. The pivot door is the one directly underneath the pivot bracket, and the other is the guide door. The pivot door uses pivots at both the top and bottom. The top pivot has a spring and pin, and the bottom pivot an adjustable bolt. Use your hammer to gently tap them into place. The remaining pivot with the wheel should be tapped into the top hole of the guide door. The jam bracket should be installed at the bottom of the opening, in line with the pivot bracket, and should be flush with the side jam. If you have an existing baseboard, you'll need to carefully remove it. To install the jam bracket, mark a center line on the side jam. Place the jam bracket tight to the floor and align the center hole with the line. Use a drill with a 3/16 inch drill bit to secure the jam bracket with the screws provided. To install the door, insert the top pivot of the pivot door into the pivot bracket. If there isn't enough clearance to install the pivot door, you may loosen the screw to adjust the pivot bracket within the track. To estimate how far to move the pivot bracket, measure from the door edge to the center of the pivot hole and add 1/4 of an inch. Then slide the pivot bracket to the equivalent measurement within the track. Lift the door and seat the bottom pivot into the jam bracket. The snugger guide simply snaps into the track and is designed to apply slight pressure to the doors to help keep them closed. Depress the guide pivot and position it under the track. Release, and the wheel should go securely into the track. If necessary, you can adjust the doors using the following steps. To adjust the door height, lift the door and remove the bottom pivot from the jam bracket. This adjustment should only be performed with the bottom pivot removed from the jam bracket. Rotate the pivot as needed to raise or lower the door. Lift the door and reseat the bottom pivot into the jam bracket. To ensure the door is plumb in the opening, with the door closed, measure the gap between the door and the jam at the top and bottom. If they're the same, the door is plumb. If not, loosen the screw and adjust the pivot bracket until the door is plumb. Tighten the screw and recheck the gap. To install the door pull, drill a hole 1 inch from the edge of the guide door where the two panels meet, at approximately 40 inches above the floor, and secure with the screw provided. For raised panel or louvered bifolds, placement height may vary by profile. For 2 sets of bifold doors in a 4-panel configuration, attach the aligners to the back of each guide door, approximately 12 inches from the floor, positioned as shown. Do not fully tighten the screws at this time. Using the slotted holes, adjust the aligners in or out so the doors snap closed, and then firmly tighten the screws. The installation of your Masonite bifold doors is now complete.